So, what happens when a company that seems to be doing really well, a specialist in a growing field like healthcare, suddenly tells its investors to brace for impact? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today with Singapore Paincare Holdings. We're going to trace their journey from a pretty solid profit to a major loss in just 1 year. And we're doing it all by looking at their own announcements. This is more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about understanding what happens when a business hits a serious, unexpected rough patch.
It all kicked off with this. A very formal and, let's be honest, kind of scary message to the market in late 2025. Now, a profit warning isn't just a friendly heads up. No, it's an official signal that things are about to get bad, like significantly worse than anyone was expecting. For an investor, this is a huge red flag. It's basically the company saying, storm's coming. And that one sentence, it set the stage for some really tough news.
Okay, so that was the warning shot. But what did the numbers actually look like when they came out? Let's take a look at just how dramatic this turnaround was. This is where the story really takes a sharp turn.
To really get a feel for this, you have to see the 2 years side by side. I mean, it's a tale of two completely different companies. FY2024, that was the story of profit, of success. But FY2025, a total 180, a year of serious loss. The entire narrative just flipped on its head in 12 months.
So let's start with the before picture. In the 2024 financial year, Singapore Paincare posted a nice, healthy net profit of just under $2 million. This is what you want to see, right? A stable business, creating value. This was the benchmark, the number they were supposed to build on. And here's the after. Just 1 year later, that nearly $2 million profit, gone. And in its place, a net loss of over $4 million. I mean, the company didn't just have a bad quarter. It went deep into the red. This wasn't a stumble. This was a free fall. And when you see it visually like this, the whiplash is just wow. That profit bar from 2024 is completely swallowed up by the massive loss in 2025. This huge negative swing tells you that the problem wasn't just about losing the gains from last year. It points to something fundamentally getting worse inside the company's finances.
So here's the thing. The story isn't just about the $4 million loss. It's about the total turnaround. Think about it. They went from making almost $2 million to losing $4 million. If you add that up, the total negative swing is about $6 million. And that makes you ask the big question. How on earth does a $6 million swing like that happen in just 1 year? What went so wrong so quickly?
Just let that number sink in for a second. $6 million. That's the chasm between where they were and where they ended up. It represents not just the cash they lost, but all the forward momentum they had. This is the financial hole we're trying to figure out.
All right, we've seen how big the problem is. Now, let's do a little financial autopsy. Looking at what the company itself said, it becomes clear this wasn't one single disaster. Nope, it was a series of pretty big problems that all hit at once to create that massive $6 million hole.
The company pointed a finger at 4 main culprits. First, there's a big accounting term, impairment of goodwill. We'll break that down. Second, they lost money on their investments in other companies. Third, their main clinics just weren't performing well. And finally, another impairment, but this time on their physical stuff, like equipment. Let's get into each of these.
So, what in the world is goodwill impairment? Okay, imagine a company buys another business. They usually pay more than what the buildings and equipment are actually worth. That extra amount is called goodwill. It's for intangible stuff, like the brand name or customer loyalty. Well, an impairment is when the company has to officially admit, you know what, that business we bought isn't doing as well as we'd hoped, so that goodwill isn't worth as much anymore. It's basically them saying on paper, oops, we overpaid.
And for Singapore Paincare, this was a huge hit, a $2.66 million write-down. And get this, they said it came from just 2 of the clinics they had acquired. That tells you a huge part of the story right there. Their strategy of growing by buying other clinics, it was backfiring big time. These 2 acquisitions were a major drag on the whole company. Okay, let's put all the pieces of the puzzle together and see how this $6 million hole got dug. The single biggest piece, more than half the problem, was those impairments we talked about, totaling about $3.3 million. That includes the big goodwill write-down and another hit on equipment. Next up, their investments in other joint ventures went sour. In 2024, those investments actually made them money. In 2025, they drained over $1 million. That's a negative swing of about $1.6 million right there. And finally, their day-to-day business was struggling. Revenue was down while costs for staff and marketing were up. It was basically a perfect storm of bad acquisitions, bad investments, and a weakening core business.
So, after a year like that, you have to pivot.
The diagnosis is done, but what's the treatment plan? Let's switch gears and see how the company says it's going to try and turn things around.
This is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Or in this case, the $6 million question. It's one thing to admit you have problems, but what really matters is having a credible plan to fix them. So what is Singapore Paincare's game plan to get back on track?
So they've laid out a 4-part strategy. First, they're taking on challenges with insurance companies, who are apparently getting tougher on claims. That can really squeeze a healthcare business. Second, they're spending money on rebranding and marketing, hoping that a stronger brand will bring in more patients. Third, they're making a big push into technology, even looking at AI to make their clinics run more smoothly. And fourth, they're on the hunt for new partners, both in Singapore and around the region, probably hoping for a less risky way to grow than the acquisitions that got them into trouble.
And that leaves us with this final massive question. The company's financial pain came from acquisitions that didn't pan out and a struggling core business. Their fix? To spend more money on branding and high-tech tools while navigating a tricky insurance landscape. So you have to wonder, is that the right prescription? Can a flashy brand and new tech really solve the deep operational issues that caused a $6 million reversal? Or are they just spending more cash without fixing the root cause? That's the challenge Singapore Paincare is facing as it tries to heal itself.